The Concorde station hung in space like a jewel, its spiraling architecture capturing the light of 3 nearby stars in a perpetual dance of color and shadow. For over 2,000 cycles, it had served as the heart of interstellar diplomacy, the neutral ground where the 27 recognized sentient species of the Galactic Concorde conducted their affairs. Its vast chambers and corridors had witnessed the rise and fall of stellar empires, the negotiation of peace treaties that spanned entire quadrants, and technological exchanges that had elevated entire civilizations. Speaker Linera moved with practiced grace along the central corridor, her 6 elongated limbs barely touching the polished floor as she glided toward the emergency council session. The summons had come during her meditation period, a rare interruption that signaled truly urgent business. Behind her willowy form, 2 junior aides struggled to keep pace, their data tablets cluttered with incoming reports. Speaker, the Defense Committee requests immediate authorization for one began. Not yet, Linera interrupted, her voice melodic but firm. The subtle bioluminescent patterns across her azure skin pulsed with emphasis. I will hear all perspectives before any authorization is given. The Grand Chamber doors parted at her approach. Inside, the full Concorde Council had already assembled, a rarity in recent decades. The raised circular platform at the center contained representatives from each member species, their environmental needs accommodated by individualized atmospheric fields. The room hummed with tense conversation. Warlord Grok, the massive reptilian representative of the Karn Dominion, was engaged in heated debate with technocrat Vix, whose sleek cybernetic enhancements glinted under the chamber lights. Vix's species, the Terixi, had evolved beyond biological constraints centuries ago, their consciousness housed in elegant mechanical forms that allowed them unparalleled computational abilities. The data cannot be falsified, Vix was insisting, multiple appendages gesturing at the holographic displays surrounding them. The sensor readings are consistent across 17 different monitoring stations. Then they have found a way to deceive our sensors, Grok rumbled, his scales flushing a deep crimson with agitation. Nothing defeats the Forlag swarm. Nothing. We have lost 3 battle fleets attempting exactly that. Speaker Linera ascended to her position at the head of the council. The session will come to order, she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly across the chamber. The conversations ceased immediately. Speaker acknowledged Vix with a respectful tilt of their metallic head. We face an unprecedented situation. Explain, Linera commanded, though she had already reviewed the preliminary reports during her journey to the chamber. Vix gestured, and the central holographic display expanded to show a 3-dimensional star map of the outer reaches of Concorde space. A pulsing red mass indicated the last known position of Forlag Hive Fleet 7, one of the numerous extensions of the dreaded biological hive mind that had been slowly consuming star systems at the galaxy's edge for generations. 16 hours ago, long-range sensors detected unusual energy signatures consistent with large-scale combat operations in this region, Vix explained. Initially, we assumed it was another unfortunate civilization making first contact with the swarm. Grok made a guttural sound of agreement. The Concorde had witnessed many such tragedies. The Forlag consumed everything organic in their path, assimilating useful genetic material and leaving barren worlds behind. Their hive ships were massive biological horrors, capable of absorbing tremendous damage while disgorging endless waves of warrior forms. However, Vix continued, the combat signatures showed patterns inconsistent with typical Forlag assimilation events. There was evidence of coordinated strikes, tactical retreats, and counteroffensives. 12 hours ago, all Forlag signatures went silent. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Impossible, stated Grok flatly. The Forlag do not retreat, and they certainly do not go silent. Not an entire hive fleet. 7 hours ago, Vix pressed on. Our outer monitoring stations detected approaching vessels through an FDL vector that does not match any known Concorde transportation technology. The hologram shifted to show a small fleet of ships moving steadily toward Concord Station. Unlike the elegant, symmetrical designs favored by Concord species, these vessels were angular, utilitarian, and clearly armored for combat. Most disturbingly, their hulls bore extensive scarring and discoloration, mottled patches of greenish-yellow that any Concord military officer would recognize with dread. The acidic ichor of four-lag bioforms, whispered an Illyrian representative, their feathered crest flattening in fear. Precisely, said Vix. These ships bear evidence of direct, close-quarters combat with four-lag forces, and yet they approach under power with systems intact. A trap, Grok insisted. The four-lag have found a new method of infiltration. Unlikely, countered Vix. The biological signatures on board are completely distinct from four-lag patterns. Furthermore, they have begun broadcasting in standard Concord trade language. With a gesture from Vix, the audio playback began. This is Battle Group Defiance, representing the Sol Federation of Humanity. We have neutralized four-lag Hive Fleet Designation 7. We request permission to dock and open diplomatic channels with the Galactic Concord. The message was delivered in a calm, measured voice, but its content sent shockwaves through the chamber. Claims of neutralizing an entire four-lag Hive fleet were unprecedented. Speaker Linera, Grok said immediately, I move that we destroy these vessels immediately. If they somehow have defeated four-lag forces, they represent a threat potentially greater than the swarm itself. And if they speak truthfully, asked Linera, would you have us destroy potential allies against our greatest existential threat? The computational probabilities suggest the message is genuine, Vix added. Analysis of their combat patterns and ship design indicates a highly adaptable, technologically advanced species with significant military doctrine. However, they're not employing overwhelming force. This battle group Defiance appears to be a relatively small flotilla, possibly an expeditionary force. Linera considered the options carefully. After a moment of silent deliberation, her bioluminescent patterns shifted to indicate a decision. We will grant them limited docking permission under maximum security protocols, she declared. The diplomatic landing bay will be isolated and surrounded by our most advanced containment fields. Defense forces will be on high alert. And, she added, looking directly at Grok, the fleet's weapons systems will remain targeted on their vessels throughout the encounter. Grok's scales settled to a dull orange of reluctant acceptance. As you command, Speaker, but I insist on personally overseeing the security detachment. Granted, said Linera. She turned to Vix. Transmit docking coordinates and procedures to these humans. Inform them that a diplomatic delegation of no more than 3 representatives will be permitted to board. As the council dispersed to make preparations, Linera remained, studying the holographic image of the approaching vessels. Their hulls, stained with the residue of humanity's deadliest enemy, spoke of violence and determination that both intrigued and disturbed her. After 2,000 years of careful, measured diplomacy, the Concord was about to face something entirely new. The diplomatic docking bay of Concord Station had been transformed into a fortress. Armored barriers had been erected at strategic points, and elite security forces from multiple Concord species stood at attention behind them. Specialized environmental sensors monitored every cubic centimeter of air for biological or technological threats. In observation rooms surrounding the bay, scientific teams prepared to analyze everything about these newcomers. Speaker Linera stood at the forefront of the receiving party, flanked by Warlord Grok and Technocrat Vix. Behind them waited representatives from each major Concord power, their postures reflecting a mixture of fear, curiosity, and diplomatic poise. The human shuttle has cleared final approach vectors, announced a security officer. Docking in 30 seconds. The shuttle that entered the bay was starkly utilitarian compared to the elegant craft typically seen at the station. Its hull bore the same distinctive scarring as the larger vessels, though it appeared to have been partially cleaned. It settled onto the docking platform with mechanical precision, locking systems engaging with a series of metallic sounds that echoed through the tense silence. After a moment, a seam appeared in the shuttle's side, widening into a doorway. 3 figures emerged. They were bipedal, roughly anthropomorphic by Concorde standards, not uncommon among oxygen-breathing species. What struck the observers immediately was their confident, measured movements. These were not beings overawed by their surroundings or intimidated by the obvious security presence. The figure in the center stepped forward first. Female, by apparent morphology, she wore a simple dark uniform adorned only with a small insignia depicting a stylized planet encircled by laurel leaves. Her hair was pulled back tightly, revealing a face that, while alien, projected composure and experience. "I am Ambassador Eva Rostova of the Seoul Federation," she stated clearly, her command of trade language flawless if slightly accented. "On behalf of humanity, I thank the Galactic Concord for this opportunity to establish diplomatic relations." She gestured to her left, indicating a tall, powerfully built male with close-cropped gray hair and a face that seemed carved from stone. General Marcus Thorne, commander of Battle Group Defiance. To her right stood another human, physically similar enough to the general to suggest genetic relation, but with sharper features and observant eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. And Dr. Eris Thorne, our chief xenolinguist and scientific advisor. Speaker Linera moved forward with fluid grace. "I am Speaker Linera, current elected leader of the Galactic Concord Council. We welcome you to Concord Station, though I must acknowledge the unusual circumstances of your arrival." "We understand," Ambassador Rostova replied. "We come seeking peaceful relations, but recognize that our introduction through conflict may cause concern." "Concern," rumbled Warlord Grok, stepping forward against protocol. "You claim to have destroyed an entire 4-lag hive fleet, a feat no Concord military force has ever accomplished, and you expect us to believe this was done by your small battle group." General Thorne regarded the massive reptilian with calm assessment. When he spoke, his voice was deep and measured. Hive Fleet 7 was relatively small by 4-lag standards, according to our intelligence. Approximately 300 bioships of various classifications, plus attendant swarm units. We engaged them after they assimilated 2 of our exploratory colonies without provocation. The matter-of-fact delivery of these details caused a ripple of reaction among the Concord representatives. Not only had these humans defeated the 4-lag, but they had done so after already losing colonies, implying they had sufficient population and resources to absorb such losses. "This discussion would be better continued in formal council," Speaker Linera suggested. "If you will follow me to the Grand Chamber, we can properly address your request for diplomatic recognition." The Grand Chamber had been reconfigured for the historic meeting. The central platform now featured accommodations suitable for human physiology based on quick analysis of their biological readings. The gallery levels were filled with representatives from every Concord species, security personnel, and scientific observers. Once all parties were settled, Speaker Linera formally opened the session. "The Galactic Concord acknowledges the representatives of the Seoul Federation. We recognize your request for diplomatic channels and have convened this extraordinary session to hear your petition." Ambassador Rostova rose. "Speaker Linera, esteemed representatives of the Galactic Concord, we come before you as neighbors seeking peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial relations. Humanity has only recently developed interstellar capabilities sufficient to reach your territories, though we have established numerous colonies within our region of space over the past century." "And how many warships do these peaceful colonies require?" interrupted Grok. "The Seoul Federation maintains a defense force proportional to the threats we have encountered," Rostova replied smoothly, "which, until recently, primarily consisted of pirates, occasional territorial disputes with non-aligned systems, and natural hazards." "Then explain your conflict with the 4-lag, demanded Grok, "and how a supposedly peaceful species developed the capability to destroy what our combined forces could not." General Thorne stood, his powerful frame drawing all eyes. 3 standard months ago, we lost contact with our exploratory colony on Epsilon Eridani 4. A response fleet discovered the planet stripped of all organic material and Forlag bioforms, establishing a foothold. Before our forces could engage, the Forlag launched spore pods toward our second colony in the system. The general activated a small device, projecting holographic footage into the chamber's central display system. The images showed massive, chitinous bioships disgorging smaller attack forms toward a human settlement. The colonists' defensive measures were quickly overwhelmed. We attempted communication on all frequencies, Thorne continued. The only response was this. The audio that played sent chills through the chamber, the distinctive psychic screech that the Concord knew all too well as the Forlag's hunting cry. At that point, having lost 2 colonies and with the Forlag clearly advancing toward other human-settled systems, the Sol Federation authorized full military response. Dr. Eris Thorne stepped forward, their movements displaying the same military precision as their sibling despite their scientific role. We analyzed recovered Forlag tissue samples and captured drone forms from the initial encounters. This provided crucial information about their biological weaknesses, communication methods, and hive structure. Technocrat Vix leaned forward with clear interest. You were able to capture intact specimens? Our attempts have always resulted in immediate biological self-destruction of Forlag forms. We developed targeted electromagnetic pulse weapons that temporarily disrupt their neural pathways before they can trigger apoptosis, Dr. Thorne explained. This gave us approximately 7 minutes to secure specimens in specialized containment fields. The clinical description masked what must have been incredibly dangerous close-quarters combat operations. General Thorne resumed the briefing. Once we understood their biology and communication methods, we developed a 3-phase strategic response. He gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show tactical simulations. Phase 1. Targeted kinetic strikes on their largest bioships using mass driver weapons and modified asteroids. The Forlag prioritized defense of their central hive nodes over peripheral units, which created predictable fleet movements we could exploit. The simulation showed human warships launching what appeared to be crude but devastatingly effective projectiles, essentially weaponized asteroids accelerated to relativistic speeds. The Forlag defensive patterns, attempting to protect Central Command ships, left them vulnerable to precisely calculated impact trajectories. Phase 2. Electronic and psychic warfare. We broadcast modified versions of their own communication frequencies, creating confusion within their hive mind. This disrupted swarm coordination and created exploitable tactical openings. The display showed Forlag attack formations losing coherence. Individual bioships moving erratically as conflicting commands spread through their network. Phase 3. Thorne continued, his voice dropping slightly. Direct engagement and purge operations. The hologram shifted to show human ships moving into extremely close range with disabled Forlag vessels, a tactic that made several Concord military officers visibly uncomfortable. Smaller craft launched from the human warships, attaching themselves to the Forlag bioships like parasites. Specialized marine units breached the outer membranes and eliminated internal resistance, targeting command nodes and severing connections to the hive mind. We deployed targeted chemical agents designed to break down the specific proteins that allow Forlag neural networking. The clinical description didn't fully capture what was visible in the tactical display. Human soldiers in armored environmental suits moving through the horrific organic corridors of Forlag ships, engaging in close-quarters combat with the most feared predatory species in known space. The entire operation took approximately 17 standard days, General Thorne concluded. Losses were significant but acceptable, 22% of our engaged forces. Forlag Hive Fleet 7 was completely neutralized, with key specimens captured for further study. A profound silence fell over the Grand Chamber. The Concord representatives were struggling to process what they had witnessed. The humans had not only survived contact with the Forelag, they had systematically dissected their greatest enemy's weaknesses and exploited them with ruthless efficiency. Warlord Grok broke the silence, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. The blood stains on your ships. Forelag internal fluids are highly corrosive, General Thorne explained. Close-range engagement and boarding operations resulted in unavoidable hull contamination. We've attempted decontamination, but complete removal would require extensive shipyard time we haven't had available. You fought them hand-to-hand, Grok stated, a new inflection in his voice that might have been respect. Inside their own vessels. It was necessary, Thorne replied simply. Conventional weapons fire risks, triggering their reproductive defense mechanisms. Direct neutralization of command nodes was the only way to prevent rapid regeneration. Dr. Eris Thorne stepped forward again. We've prepared comprehensive data packages on Forelag biology, vulnerabilities, and effective countermeasures. These are offered freely to the Concord as a gesture of goodwill, regardless of the outcome of our diplomatic petition. Technocrat Vix access the data through their neural interface, holographic displays flickering rapidly as they process the information. After several moments, they address the chamber. The data appears authentic and extraordinarily valuable. Initial analysis confirms multiple vulnerabilities in Forelag biology that our previous research failed to identify. If verified, this intelligence represents the most significant advancement in anti-Forelag strategy in over 300 cycles. Speaker Linera studied the human delegation carefully. We thank you for this offering, representatives of humanity. The Concord Council will require time to deliberate on your petition for diplomatic recognition. In the meantime, you will be provided appropriate accommodations. This session is adjourned for 12 standard hours. As the chamber began to empty, Ambassador Rostova approached Speaker Linera privately. We understand your caution, Speaker. We come seeking partnership, not to impose ourselves upon the Concord. But I should make you aware, our sensors detected the launch of what we believe to be a reconnaissance probe toward our home territories shortly after our arrival. Linara's bioluminescent patterns flickered with surprise. The probe launch had been authorized through the most secure channels. Rostova continued smoothly. We have no objection. In fact, we welcome the Concord's due diligence. We have instructed our defense grid to allow the probe's safe passage. What you learn may help inform your deliberations. With that, the human delegation departed, leaving Linera with the unsettling realization that very little escaped their notice. In their temporary quarters, the human delegation gathered around a secure communications terminal. Initial reception as expected, Ambassador Rostova noted, removing the tight clip that had held her hair and massaging her scalp. Fear, disbelief, then cautious interest once they processed the Forelag data. General Thorne stood by the viewport, watching the constant movement of ships around Concord Station. Warlord Grok is the one to watch. He understands combat reality better than the others. Once he accepts what we've done, he'll either become our strongest advocate or our most determined opponent. Their probe will reach the Sol defense perimeter in approximately 6 hours, Dr. Aristhorn reported, eyes on a data tablet. Fleet Command has been instructed to allow normal civilian operations to continue without alteration. The probe will see what it sees. And what exactly will it see? Eris asked Rostova. Dr. Thorne's lips curved in a slight smile. A civilization still recovering from its own violent history. Extensive militarization by necessity, not by nature. Thriving colonies. Art, culture, commerce. They'll draw their own conclusions. They won't understand what they're seeing, General Thorne said quietly. Not really. They've been fighting the Forelag for generations, using the same tactics, the same technologies, expecting different results. Then we'll help them understand, Rostova replied. That's why we're here. The Concord probe moved silently through space, its advanced stealth systems making detection nearly impossible by most species standards. As it entered the outer reaches of what the humans called the Sol Federation, its sensors recorded everything. The first discoveries were military in nature. Defensive platforms and patrol vessels arranged in complex formations around approach vectors. The probe's artificial intelligence noted that these defenses, while substantial, were not arranged in patterns suggesting imminent aggression or expansion. Rather, they formed a multi-layered protective shell around what appeared to be dozens of inhabited star systems. Proceeding deeper, the probe encountered civilian infrastructure on a massive scale. Orbital habitats housed millions of humans around multiple planets and moons. Vast industrial complexes harvested resources from asteroids and gas giants. Transport ships moved constantly between settlements, carrying goods, people, and information. The probe accessed public information networks, downloading historical and cultural data for analysis. What it found sent urgent signals back to Concord Station. In the Concord Council's Secure Analysis Chamber, Speaker Linera, Warlord Grok, and Technocrat Vix reviewed the probe's findings with growing concern. These humans, Grok rumbled, gesturing at the historical records displayed before them. They spent millennia fighting each other before they ever reached the stars. The displays showed images of human conflicts throughout their history, from primitive tribes with stone weapons to devastating global wars employing nuclear armaments and biological agents. The technological progression was staggeringly rapid, driven by the constant pressure of competition and conflict. Their capacity for violence is matched only by their capacity for innovation, Vix observed. They developed more weapons technologies in their last 3 centuries planet-bound than most Concord species developed in 1,000 years of space exploration. And yet, Linera noted, examining cultural and social data, they also created art, philosophy, and social structures that value peace and cooperation. They are contradictory beings. Most concerning, Vix added, is their integration of artificial intelligence into military applications. The probe had detected numerous instances of AI systems embedded in human defense networks, weapon platforms, and even their starships. After the Mechanid uprising 600 cycles ago, the Concord had placed strict limitations on artificial intelligence, particularly in military applications. They augment their natural aggression and tactical thinking with machine precision, Grok said. No wonder they developed effective counters to the Forlag so quickly. Another data point flashed for their attention. Genetic records suggesting historical human experimentation with their own genome, potentially explaining certain adaptive traits observed in their soldiers. Before they could process this disturbing implication, an urgent communication interrupted the session. Speaker Linera came the voice of a senior communications officer. We've received a distress call from Research Outpost Vega 9 near the Border Transit Corridor. They report multiple Forlag biosignatures approaching their position. Estimated time to contact, 3 hours. Linera accessed the tactical display showing the outpost location. It was a purely scientific installation studying unusual stellar phenomena, staffed by researchers from multiple Concord species. More significantly, it lay directly between Concord Station and the trajectory the human battle group had followed. These must be survivors from Hive Fleet 7, Grok concluded, fleeing the human assault and now seeking easy prey. Our nearest military response group is at least 9 hours away, the communications officer reported grimly. Linera made a rapid calculation. Alert all available defensive assets. And she hesitated only briefly. Transmit the distress call to the human delegation as well. Within minutes, Ambassador Rostova had requested an emergency audience with Speaker Linera. The human arrived at the speaker's private chamber, accompanied by both General and Dr. Thorne. We've received the distress call from your research outpost, Rostova stated without preamble. General Thorne has identified the approaching Forlag vessels as elements of a scout formation that's separated from the main Hive fleet before our engagement. How could you possibly know that? Linera asked. We've been tracking residual Forlag communications since the battle, Dr. Thorne explained. These units have been moving erratically, likely seeking to re-establish contact with their hive mind. General Thorne stepped forward. Speaker Linera, I formally request permission to dispatch a rapid response task force from Battlegroup Defiance to intercept the Forlag vessels and protect your outpost. Why? Asked Linera directly. These are not your people at risk. The outpost holds no strategic value to your Federation. 2 reasons, Rostova replied. First, as a demonstration of our commitment to peaceful cooperation with the Concord. Second, because we understand the Forlag better than anyone now. Those survivors are like wounded predators, more dangerous, more unpredictable than a coordinated hive fleet. Linera studied the humans carefully, her species' sensitive perception noting minute changes in their expressions and postures. They appeared genuinely concerned, though she suspected they also recognized the diplomatic opportunity the situation presented. Very well, she decided. Permission granted. However, I must insist that all operations be transmitted live to the Concord Council. If this is to be a demonstration, let it be fully transparent. Agreed, said General Thorne immediately. We have nothing to hide. 2 hours later, the Concord Council gathered in the Strategic Command Center, where massive holographic displays showed multiple perspectives of the unfolding situation. The human response had been impressively swift. A small task force of 5 vessels had broken formation from the main battle group and accelerated toward the research outpost at speeds that pushed the boundaries of safe FTL travel. They would arrive approximately 20 minutes before the Forlag. Cutting it close, Grok observed, they could have dispatched more ships. Watch, advised Vix. I suspect we're about to witness something instructive. The human task force dropped out of FTL near the research outpost, a delicate structure of interconnected modules housing laboratories and living quarters for 67 researchers. Immediately, the human vessels began rapid, coordinated movements that seemed chaotic at first glance. They're establishing a defensive perimeter, Grok realized. But those formations, they're deliberately creating gaps. Bait, Vix concluded. They're positioning to channel the Forlag approach. The Forlag bio ships arrived precisely on schedule. 8 vessels of varying sizes, their organic hulls pulsing with sickly luminescence. They moved with the familiar hunting pattern that had terrorized Concord space for generations, spreading out to surround their prey before converging for the kill. What happened next stunned the watching council. 2 of the human vessels suddenly vanished from sensors. Transmission error? Asked an aide. No, said Vix with unusual emotion in their synthetic voice. Phase technology. Theoretical in Concord research, but apparently operational in human hands. The vanished ships reappeared moments later, directly behind the largest Forlag vessel. Precise weapons fire targeted what appeared to be neural clusters and propulsion nodes, disabling rather than destroying the massive bioform. Simultaneously, the remaining human ships executed a complex maneuver, herding the smaller Forlag vessels into a tightly clustered formation through carefully calculated weapons fire. Then they unleashed what appeared to be conventional missiles. But instead of detonating, the projectiles attached themselves to the Forlag hulls and began broadcasting intense electromagnetic pulses. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Forlag vessels' coordinated movements collapsed into erratic spasms. Their weapons, primarily biological projectiles and energy tentacles, fired randomly into space. They're disrupting the hive-mind connection, Vix observed, isolating each vessel from central control. While the Forlag forces were in disarray, the human ships launched smaller craft, boarding shuttles carrying marine teams. They're going to breach, Grok said with grudging admiration. Just as they described. The holographic display shifted to include helmet camera feeds from the marine boarding teams. The Concord Council watched in fascinated horror as human soldiers, encased in heavy environmental armor, breached the outer membranes of the disabled Forlag ships. What followed was combat unlike anything in Concord military doctrine. The Marines moved through the nightmarish organic corridors with practiced efficiency, their weapons specifically designed to target Forlag biological systems. They used directed sonic weapons that shattered the crystalline neural structures of warrior forms. Specialized chemical agents deployed in precise patterns disrupted the biochemical communications between forelag components. Most impressively, they captured rather than killed the highest value targets, command drones, and what appeared to be a juvenile queen form, using targeted electromagnetic pulses to render them unconscious before securing them in specialized containment units. The entire operation, from initial engagement to final containment, took less than 40 minutes. When it was complete, General Thorne's voice came through the communication channel, calm and professional, as if he were reporting routine patrol results. Concord Command, this is Task Force Azure. Forelag threat neutralized. Research Outpost Vega 9 is secure. We have captured 3 command drones and 1 Queen variant for study. Request instructions regarding disposition of prisoners and intelligence. In the Strategic Command Center, silence reigned. The Concord representatives had just witnessed a small human force accomplish what their combined military might had failed to do for generations. Not just defeat the Forelag, but capture them, study them, and turn their own biology against them. Speaker Linera was the first to recover. General Thorne, on behalf of the Concord, I extend our sincere gratitude for your intervention. The researchers at Outpost Vega 9 owe you their lives. No thanks necessary, Speaker, came the reply. We consider this action consistent with our proposed mutual defense initiative. The intelligence gathered will benefit all potential signatories. The implication was clear. This was just a taste of what alliance with humanity could offer. The emergency council session that followed the Vega 9 incident was unlike any in recent Concord history. The mood had shifted dramatically from suspicion to pragmatic reassessment. Warlord Grok, who had been the most vocal opponent of human integration, now stood before the council with a completely different posture. I have reviewed all available data on the human military response, he announced. Their tactics against the Forelag are unorthodox, brutal, and extraordinarily effective. In 17 days, they've accomplished what we have failed to do in 17 generations. He turned to face the human delegation directly. I questioned your methods, your intentions, and your claims. I was wrong to do so. The Karn Dominion formally supports the human petition for Concord recognition. Technocrat Vix presented their analysis next. The scientific and intelligence value of the captured Forelag specimens cannot be overstated. Initial examination confirms multiple vulnerabilities in Forelag biology that could revolutionize our defensive capabilities. Furthermore, the humans' willingness to share this intelligence demonstrates good faith. One by one, representatives from other Concord powers express similar sentiments. The revelation of humanity's capabilities had transformed the political calculus. Whatever moral qualms some might harbor about human methods were outweighed by the existential threat the Forelag posed. Speaker Linera called for Ambassador Rostova to address the council. The human diplomat stepped forward with characteristic poise. Esteemed representatives of the Galactic Concord, we recognize that our arrival has been disruptive. Humanity does not seek to impose our methods or values upon a Concord. We request recognition not to dominate, but to contribute to galactic stability and mutual prosperity. She gestured toward Dr. Thorne, who activated a holographic display showing detailed biological analyses of Forelag specimens. As a gesture of good faith, we offer complete access to our Forelag research. Dr. Thorne will coordinate with your scientific teams to implement effective countermeasures across Concord Defense Forces. General Thorne stepped forward next. Additionally, we propose the establishment of a joint defense initiative. Human tactical advisors would work with Concord military planners to develop new strategies against the Forelag threat. In return, we seek access to Concord technological developments in non-military fields. Rostova concluded, we propose probationary membership status for an initial period of 5 standard years. This would allow both our peoples time to adapt to each other's methods and cultures. During this period, we would establish embassies, trade relationships, and military liaison offices. Speaker Linera called for a formal vote. The result was decisive, 25-member species in favor, with only 2 abstentions. The sole Federation of Humanity would be granted probationary membership in the Galactic Concord, with all associated rights and responsibilities. As the formal protocols were completed and congratulations extended, Speaker Linera requested a private meeting with the human delegation in her personal chambers. Once the doors were sealed, she addressed them with newfound directness. Your intervention at Vega 9 was fortuitously timed. Ambassador Rostova smiled slightly. Fortune favors the prepared, Speaker Linera. Indeed, just as your sensors happened to detect our reconnaissance probe. You've been monitoring our communications since your arrival, haven't you? General Thorne met her gaze steadily. We maintain defensive awareness at all times, Speaker, a habit developed through necessity. I understand necessity better than you might think, General, Linera replied. The Concord was formed after the Great Conjunction War nearly destroyed all our civilizations. We chose bureaucracy and measured diplomacy over military strength because we feared our own capacity for destruction. She moved to a viewport overlooking the vast expanse of Concord Station. The probe we sent observed much about your civilization, your conflicts, your rapid advancement, your integration of technologies we have deliberately limited. And your conclusions? Asked Dr. Thorne. That humanity is dangerous, Linera stated simply. But perhaps the galaxy has become dangerous enough to require your particular talents. She turned back to face them directly. I have one question before we formalize our new relationship. Battle Group Defiance, impressive as it is, represents only a fraction of humanity's military capability, doesn't it? The 3 humans exchanged glances before General Thorne answered. Battle Group Defiance is an expeditionary force, Speaker Linera. Our home defense fleets remain in Sol-controlled space, as do our primary research and development facilities. I suspected as much, Linera said softly. Then we are fortunate indeed that your first contact with our galaxy was through the Forelag, and not through us. The circumstances of our meeting were not ideal, Ambassador Rostova acknowledged. But they have established the foundation for honest cooperation. We don't see conflict, Speaker Linera. Humanity has had enough of war. But we have learned, through bitter experience, that peace must sometimes be defended with force. A lesson the Concord has been reluctant to embrace, Linera admitted, perhaps to our detriment. The following days saw rapid developments as humanity established its initial presence within the Concord. An embassy was allocated within the diplomatic sector of Concord Station, while human technical teams began the complex process of integrating their communication systems with Concord networks. The most significant collaboration centered around the Forelag threat. Dr. Eris Thorne established a joint research initiative with technocrat Vix, combining human tactical pragmatism with the Tarixi's unparalleled computational abilities. The captured Forelag specimens provided unprecedented insights into the hive mind's neural structure, revealing vulnerabilities that could be exploited on a strategic scale. General Marcus Thorne, meanwhile, began a series of tactical briefings with Concord defense planners. The sessions were initially marked by cultural friction. Concord military doctrine emphasized minimal casualties and technological superiority, concepts that seemed quaint to human officers, accustomed to the brutal calculus of survival. You've been fighting a defensive war, General Thorne explained during one particularly tense session. Retreating, fortifying, retreating again. The Forelag interpret this as weakness. They're biological predators. They pursue what flees. Warlord Grok, who had become an unexpected advocate for human methods, growled his agreement. The general speaks truth. We have been prey for too long. Not all interactions were military in nature. Human cultural attaches hosted exhibitions showcasing earth art, music, and cuisine. These events revealed a species of startling creative diversity, from delicate harmonic compositions to thundering percussion, from abstract visual expressions to hyper-realistic portraiture. The contradictions that defined humanity were on full display, fascinating and sometimes disturbing their Concord hosts. Some Concord species found human unpredictability troubling. The Lethari, whose hive-mind social structure emphasized harmony and consensus, formally protested the inclusion of such an erratic and potentially destabilizing species. Their concerns were noted but overruled by the practical reality of the four-lag threat. 3 months after humanity's dramatic arrival, the newly established Joint Defense Initiative faced its first major test. Long-range monitoring stations detected a significant four-lag force, not just a scout group, but a full hive fleet, moving toward the densely populated Eridani cluster, home to billions of Concord citizens across multiple worlds. The emergency session that followed was markedly different from the initial contact with humanity. Now, Ambassador Rostova sat as a recognized member of the Concord Council, while General Thorne and Dr. Eris Thorne served as official military and scientific advisors. The four-lag fleet will reach the outer colonies of the Eridani cluster in approximately 14 days, Technocrat Vix reported. Analysis indicates this is Hive Fleet 3, one of the largest currently active in this quadrant. Estimated strength, 2,000 bioships of various classifications. A murmur of dismay spread through the chamber. Previous four-lag incursions of this scale had resulted in the loss of entire star systems. Traditional Concord defense plans would call for evacuation of the outer colonies and concentration of our forces around the core worlds, continued Vix. However, General Thorne has proposed an alternative strategy. All eyes turned to the human military commander as he stepped forward, activating a holographic tactical display. Evacuation remains prudent for civilian populations, Thorne began, but I propose we meet this threat with coordinated offensive action rather than static defense. Using the display, he outlined a multi-layered strategy incorporating both Concord and human military assets. The plan called for targeted strikes against the four-lag command ships, electronic warfare to disrupt hive coordination, and, most controversially, direct boarding actions against key vessels. This approach would require implementation of the biologics and countermeasures developed by the Joint Research Team, Dr. Eris Thorne added. Specifically, the targeted viral agents designed to disrupt four-lag neural pathways. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The use of biological weapons, even against the four-lag, bordered on taboo under traditional Concord ethics. We understand this approach diverges from Concord military tradition, Ambassador Rostov acknowledged. However, the human contingent is prepared to lead these operations, with Concord forces in supporting roles initially. Speaker Linera studied the tactical projections carefully. And were the projected casualties under this plan, General? 23% for engaged forces, Thorne replied without hesitation, compared to an estimated 67% under conventional defensive deployment. More importantly, civilian casualties would be reduced by approximately 89%. Those are still significant military losses, noted an Illyrian representative. War always has a cost, General Thorne said simply. But this plan makes the four-lag pay a higher one. After hours of debate, the Council approved the joint operation. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Concord would take the offensive against its most feared enemy. The battle for the Eridani cluster unfolded over 9 harrowing days. Human warships, now bearing Concord identification alongside their own insignia, led the most dangerous assaults while Concord vessels provided fire support and containment. Marine boarding teams, now including volunteers from several Concord species, predominantly Karn and Trixie, executed precision strikes against four-lag command nodes. As the operation progressed, the Concord military adapted with surprising speed, incorporating human tactics and technology into their own operations. The Karn, in particular, proved adept at the aggressive close-quarters combat that humans had pioneered against the four-lag. When the final four-lag command ship was neutralized on the 9th day, the combined fleet had suffered casualties within 1% of General Thorne's projection. More importantly, not a single civilian world had been lost, though 2 space stations and several outposts had sustained damage. In the aftermath, as recovery operations began and damage was assessed, Speaker Linera found herself again in private conversation with Ambassador Rostova. This victory will reshape Concord's strategic thinking for generations, Linera acknowledged. Already, several member species are increasing their military budgets and requesting human tactical advisors. Is that a concern for you, Speaker? Rostova asked perceptively. The Concorde was founded on principles of diplomatic cooperation and measured response, Linera replied. I worry that in our embrace of human methods, we may lose something essential to our identity. Rostova considered this thoughtfully. History has taught humanity that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice and security. The Forlag threatened both. Perhaps now, with that threat diminished, the Concorde can build a peace worth preserving. Perhaps, Linera agreed. Though I suspect this is just the beginning of our challenges together. The probe we sent to your territories observed other aspects of human society that raise questions. Your artificial intelligence integration, your genetic research. These touch upon difficult historical events for the Concorde. Every civilization carries its scars, Rostova acknowledged. Humanity's history is written in the blood of our own conflicts. We've learned from them, but they have shaped us nonetheless. And now you will shape us, Linera said, her bioluminescence pulsing in complex patterns of concern and hope. For better or worse, the Concorde will never be the same after the day humanity arrived with blood-stained ships. In the months that followed, human integration into the Galactic Concorde accelerated. Trade routes were established, cultural exchanges multiplied, and joint military operations expanded beyond the Forlag threat to address piracy and other security concerns. Battle Group Defiance, the bloodstains on its hulls now worn as badges of honor, was joined by additional human vessels as diplomatic and commercial interests expanded. Yet the main Soul Defense fleets remained in human space, a reminder of humanity's cautious approach to full integration. 6 months after their arrival, General Marcus Thorne stood on the observation deck of Concorde Station, watching the constant flow of traffic, now including numerous human vessels alongside the elegant ships of the Concorde species. His sibling, Dr. Eris Thorne, joined him at the viewport. The joint research team has identified 3 more Forlag hive fleets that can be targeted using our latest countermeasures, Dr. Thorne reported. Technocrat Vix believes we can neutralize 50% of known Forlag activity within 2 standard years. And the other 50%, the general asked, will require more creative solutions, Dr. Thorne replied carefully. Solutions that push the boundaries of what the Concorde currently finds acceptable. General Thorne nodded, understanding the implication. Ambassador Rostova believes we need to proceed cautiously. Some member species are already expressing concern about the pace of military development. They fear becoming more like us, Dr. Thorne observed. With good reason, the general replied, watching as a sleek new human Concorde hybrid vessel departed the station, its design blending the practical functionality of human military architecture with the elegant efficiency of Concorde aesthetics. What do you think the outcome will be? Dr. Thorne asked. Will they change us? Or will we change them? General Thorne considered the question, remembering the blood-stained ships that had brought them to this moment. The physical evidence of humanity's willingness to do whatever was necessary to survive. Both, he answered finally. But the galaxy was already changing. The Forlag saw to that. At least now, we faced that change together. Across the station, in the Grand Chamber, Ambassador Rostova completed the formal signing of the Mutual Defense Initiative, now expanded to include 17 Concorde member species. As the document was sealed with the appropriate ceremonial flourishes, Speaker Linera approached her. Your arrival has catalyzed the most significant transformation in Concorde history, she said quietly. Some call it a renaissance. Others fear it may be something else. History will judge, Rostova replied. But I believe we've opened a door to something greater than either of our civilizations could have achieved alone. Perhaps, Linera acknowledged. Though I suspect the full consequences of the day humanity arrived with blood-stained ships will not be understood for generations to come. As they spoke, far beyond Concord space, other forces observed these developments with interest. The galaxy was changing, alliances shifting, powers rising and falling. The blood-stained pragmatism of humanity had found its place among the stars, for better or worse. And the stars themselves would never be the same again.